I'll start off the meeting, or I'll finish the meeting actually as chair, as Mr. Beardmore, our chair, will be a little late. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel and on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page. The following information is also provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, please use the Zoom capability, with the webinar ID being 892-6743-1315 and the passcode 115105. Or from a telephone, dial the toll-free number 888-475-4499 and also enter webinar ID 892-6743-1315 with the same passcode 115105. If you have not registered with Zoom, you'll be asked for your name and an email address. No participant ID is needed. Just press pound when asked. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. Please note the available Zoom option, broadcast, and recordings are for the convenience of the public. If any technical difficulties were to occur, the meeting will continue here at Town Hall. If you wish to continue to participate, you must report to this location on the notice, Town Hall. Please be aware that this and plan accordingly. The list of topics may be discussed as in the agenda, and those that are reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. And with that, if we can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, any announcements? Hearing none. Any public comment? Who do we do first, the board? From the board.
Your choice. Either or.
All right, any public comment from the public? All right, hearing none. I will now open the meeting as a public hearing on special town meeting warrant articles. I guess I should present the articles. Share screen. All right. The first article is Article A. Right now, they will eventually get numbers. In Article A is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds all sums of money necessary to amend the amounts voted for the town's fiscal year 2022 budget under Article 6 of the May 1st, 2021 town meeting, or take any other action relative thereto. Is there any comment from the board or public, or do we know the values associated with these? Sure. Yeah. Please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So earlier today, I sent a chart that indicated all the amendments to under, right now it's labeled Article A. So that was a budget adjustment worksheet.
Is that an Excel?
Yeah,
Word?
a PDF. I can go over them
You can
while
go
you're
over
looking
them,
for
I'll
it.
try to find it.
So there, I'll go over what changes are made. And we've talked about previously the town accountant line. That line would be proposed to be increased by $4,912. That position is being advertised as assistant accountant. This is to increase the hours from 24 to 32 hours for that position. And this will, we have a retirement in the office, so that position will be replacing the retiree. And this would be an opportunity to plan succession planning for the future, or when, or if our finance director is out.
Not to hold up the proceedings, but I'm assuming that the job still needs to be posted even though you're working on succession planning.
The job is currently posted because we had funding for
I mean, at the time of the
24.
retirement.
She retires next week.
I'm sorry. Whoever gets that assistant position would have an advantage, obviously, but you'd still have to post the position if you have the retirement, right? Or is the assistant position that's a retiree?
So the previous position was a principal clerk,
Okay.
and it's changing to an assistant accountant.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's right.
I'm back in line with what you're talking about now.
Okay. The other budget change is for the technology budget. This budget is proposed to increase by $65,352. This, as you are aware, we have applied for 2 different grants. One grant is a $10,000 grant through our insurance company. That's to migrate to Microsoft Office 365. So we'll hear sometime in November on that announcement. And we just applied this week for a community compact grant, and that grant is both for town and school network infrastructure equipment. So this reflects the town portion of that cost of that equipment in case we don't receive the grant, and we won't know until after town meeting about that grant. And a small amount of money that's needed for the salary that was the IT director to shift to the consultant. That's approximately $3,000 that we would need for that. And the last is the Medicare, the town share, which is $39,935. This, the last couple years, this has been covered by the health insurance line. So we're adjusting it now to reflect a true projection of what we expect that cost to be for this year. And to help cover a portion of these amendments is a reduction to the group health insurance line of $78,500 and a reduction to the Monty Tech assessment number, which we just received a revised assessment number this week of $21,159. Also, what helps the overall budget is we had change in our new growth number, which was an additional $149,664. And the changes to the sewer enterprise budget raised the amount of revenue available and decreased the amount of the expenditure adjustments. So that leaves us with an overall balanced budget in the end, even with the changes in the state assessments. Are there any questions?
Yes, on the town accountant budget and the technology director budget, Is that just salaries, those
No.
line items?
The town accountant, that number is just salary. The technology director, it's labeled technology director, but it's the entire technology budget. That's just how it's titled, that line account, which probably should be changed. And the only portion of that which is related to, and it's a third party, we're now with a third party consultant, is approximately $3,000. And that's in, so, because we had a portion of the technology director's budget remaining.
Right.
Heather, just a quick question. It's something I've never asked before or really thought that much about. Salary reserve account, is there a reason why we don't use that for these adjustments, or salary reserve only for anticipated changes in contracts?
We try to reserve those for,
Only contracts?
yeah. There are times we have used it for salaries. One scenario is that you use the salary adjustment money instead of money out of the available funds out of the budget, where you might be able to use those somewhere else, or they flow to free cash at the end of the year. Just a couple of scenarios that could happen. Thank you. You're welcome. Any other questions on the first article?
I'm good.
No.
Any questions from public?
I have a quick question about the technology director part. You said that the part of that was also in case the grant does not go through, that's the town side of it, but that it's combined with the school and the town together. Should we be seeing a school portion of that as well, or
Not within the town line appropriation.
are they able to absorb their contribution if the grant doesn't be approved?
Yeah, I don't want to answer for the superintendent, but there are possible scenarios where they would be able to cover, they get E-rate for equipment purchases, so, and they could do a more staggered approach than the cost that was in the grant. Welcome.
So was a consultant for both the town and the school?
This reflects the town side.
Was a consultant working for both the town and the school?
The consultant has been speaking with the school about a proposal.
So the consultant is working for the school and not the town?
No, the consultant, we engaged the consultant, and they're also simultaneously speaking with the school about a proposal as well.
So one consultant for both the town and the school?
That would be up to the school ultimately.
But it's going to be two separate appropriations, but for the
Right.
same purpose.
Right, that would come out of
One
their
on the town
budget.
side and one on the school
Yeah.
budget side.
Yep.
That makes sense?
So this number, the 236, is for the town side? For
Yes.
consulting and equipment upgrades, et cetera?
The revised number is 301,800.
301, yes.
Yep, that is just town side.
Just the town
Yep.
side? Okay.
I'm good.
Move on?
Yep.
Okay.
Article B, do we usually read them, or just, they're on the screen now, I guess?
Yeah, if they're on the screen, I'd say.
Okay,
And everyone,
well, they're on that screen.
I don't know if everyone through PAC, but now it's on that screen. Okay, you're all set.
They're definitely on Zoom,
Okay.
that's where I'm
That's the
watching.
Zoom screen, that's the PAC screen. All right, Article B is prior year expenses, and amount is also on the budget adjustment sheet. That is $7,519.70. And these were invoices, technology related, that weren't discovered until after the closeout of the year, and funds were not encumbered for them.
And again, from available funds?
Yes, yes, it would be an appropriation.
I just have a quick question on that. Do you know if IT underspent their budget in the previous year?
That I would have to, verify on that. Maybe is Karen on the Zoom call?
I don't see her.
You could probably pull
she
that
is.
up.
Then the other question would be, it may not matter.
One of the bills I know was there were sufficient funds for 4,000 of
They weren't encumbered
that,
when they got-
right.
Oh, and sorry, and those were town expenses, not school expenses, given that they
Correct.
were IT?
Yep.
Karen's
I'm gonna look
unmuted.
up that number for you guys right now.
Thank you, Karen.
So if I can just ask a question on this entire spreadsheet, so the budget adjustment spreadsheet. So I think A covers the total 31,540, is that right?
That's, so that's part of it. So there's other not appropriations that are part of the budget, which are state assessments. So that's not something that's voted on at town meeting, but it's an estimate that we go into town meeting with, as well as new growth. We use an estimate, and that gets certified in the fall. So that's the accurate number, the additional funds that were beyond the estimate. So it's all a change in revenue sources and expenditures to get your bottom line.
And it all totals out to a slight,
A $236 surplus.
amazing how close that came out.
Yeah. Didn't go to zero. We leave a little.
Okay, thank you.
Heather, one quick question too, on the group insurance savings. Is that a one-time deal like we had in the spring where we put that money into the reserve account to balance out, or was it just less participation?
Yeah, because we're part of the way, part of the way through this year, we're comfortable with using that number as reduction at this point.
As a reduction,
Yeah.
okay. In effect, freeing up funds to be transferred somewhere else.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Because there's certain positions that haven't come on yet that we budgeted for a full year for insurance.
Karen raised her hand. You can go ahead, Karen.
I just wanted to tell you that the appropriation closeout at the end of FY '21 for the technology director was $72,000, but about $30,000 of that was salary.
There was ample funds to pay them. Pay the invoice. Okay.
42,000.
So those dollar amounts would have closed to the free cash certification at the end of the year.
Part of that, though, was an estimate. So we used how we split personnel. The school provided slightly more than what the split was.
And that was adjusted mid-year at one point, right? Because of the COVID work or?
No, we went into the budget with this year's, budget with Dan Nadarowski, full 100%. But yeah, the split before was 50-50 for the director, and it went to 70-30.
Okay.
All right, any additional questions? Any questions from the public? Again, anyone on Zoom, if they can raise their hand, I can call on you.
You got a hard job tonight.
Method to the madness.
My gaming skills will come into play. All right, so let's move on to Article C.
We'll see. I'd hope to have a number for you tonight, but I cannot provide it tonight. The board did vote on this, but the union membership still has to vote, so I'll have that for your next meeting. But that would be coming out of the salary reserve account. Article D, so sorry, C was the fire union
Firefighters.
collective bargaining agreement for a 2-year agreement. So
Any-
everyone knows what it is. Okay.
Any questions on that? D, the elderly exemption. It's on the screen.
So this is maintaining the limits, the income and asset limits, but adjust the exemption amount from $750 to $1,000. The estimated impact is around $7,500, which would come out of the overlay account, which is, but we have sufficient funds in the overlay because it's now combined years instead of year by year. So there is sufficient funds on that. So we won't have to adjust that overlay estimate on the tax-free cap.
I think this question was asked last week as well, but the limits are not being adjusted?
No, that's what's currently in place. This is memorializing it by a town meeting vote. And it's only we're allowed to increase the exemption amount to the $1,000. So that's what the change is. It's currently at $750.
Okay.
Do the income limit, oops, sorry.
I mean, I'm just going to say, the way it reads, it says adjust the income and asset limits. I just, I don't know if that's just, I'm misreading it, or...
Well, that's the path we went down last
Yeah,
week.
that's what I
It's down
remember.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Should we check?
definitely somewhat ambiguous or misleading.
Is that actually pegged to another limit somewhere else? So that,
Within that Mass General Law,
yeah.
I'm sure that's all within like the limits, but I would have to find that out for sure. Maybe Karen might know that answer.
So does this reference tie into like circuit breaker or something like that, math?
No, I don't believe so. That would be the state circuit breaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do those limits go up automatically year after year?
I believe it would take a town meeting vote, but I'd have to get that answer.
Oh, no, on the state side. Does the state side raise it every year?
I can find that out.
I guess the question really is, should we just peg this to whatever that is, so as that goes up, we don't vote on it every year?
We can look into that. I don't know if it requires a town meeting vote to increase it.
Okay. All right, any additional questions on letter D?
Just a comment, I think the asset limits are what limit an awful lot of the seniors from taking advantage of this. Fixed incomes, you're well under those numbers, but it's the assets that you've accumulated over the years that bump you out of this program. Assets are not money, though.
Let's go to letter E.
This is the easement for the Lunenburg Central project that's before, I don't know if it's gone through the entire site plan approval.
It is
yet?
not.
No,
It
okay.
should probably wrap up in the next 2 to 4 weeks.
Is that this one?
Yes.
Yes.
So you'd asked last meeting to see a map of that. That's the map showing, and it's referenced in the article as well.
Yeah, I guess my question last week was about the actual turn leading into this, which has been discussed at Planning Board at the intersection of Leominster Shirley Road and Reservoir. So this is not that turn. This is actually in front of the building.
It's creating a turn lane. That's what we were also talking about.
Right, yeah. I would be more happy if that actual intersection was on the south side of that road was, kind of blown back and you could see around the corner and not cheat death every... Go ahead, Mr. Bernie.
While he's walking up, I won't beat it to death, but there was a way to get that corrected a number of years ago and it fell through.
So the applicant has worked with the Keating Corporation and the Keating family, and they've committed to a vegetation and cutting plan on the corner opposite of the intersection you're speaking about. So the intent there is that removing that vegetation back, I believe it's 20 feet from the edge of pavement, will provide visibility across that blind corner. It's not going to make it perfect. It's a problem we have that exists now, whether this facility goes there or not. So in good faith, they've made an attempt to work with the town and their abutters to produce something that will improve some of the safety. And they're going to work the details out with the DPW and the other parties. So some of that is being addressed. Addressing that intersection in general is just a huge engineering challenge at best.
Okay. All right, any questions on Article E? All right, Article F relates to the sewer enterprise budget.
Yes, yep, and I sent a summary sheet that the finance director put together regarding the sewer enterprise budget. But essentially, they are proposing to increase the hours to make it a benefited position for the assistant to the sewer business manager. Therefore, it requires a change in the budget. Go from a non-benefited to benefited position.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Heather, that's all funds coming through their revolving accounts and their reserve accounts, so it doesn't really affect the budget. It's just an in and out type of thing.
Yeah, their retained earnings,
Right.
and reduction in the on the revenue side.
Right. Thank you.
Article G is also related to the sewer reserve stabilization fund?
So that's a special capital reserve stabilization fund that they annually put funds into. So this comes out of retained earnings as well. And the amount is $14,875.50.
Do they also do that at annual town meeting? Or is this just an adjustment to what they transfer? I'm wondering if this is an adjustment, an increase of the transfer done in the spring, or if they do it at special town meeting every year. Don't they do a major transfer in the annual town meeting?
Yes, they did. And they deposit funds into the OPEB liability and the, I'm thinking of the
Go ahead, Karen.
sewer.
They did a portion of the transfer at the annual town meeting, and what they do is they take the funds that are collected in the prior fiscal year and place them in that stabilization fund. So they have to wait for the year to close before they can do the final transfer.
Okay, That makes
Karen.
sense.
I was trying to look at our balance sheet.
Is this driven by a formula that is part of their fiscal policy, or how do you land at a number like $14,875.50? Is that, you know, like a dividend at the end, or is it driven by some kind of formula that says a proportion of retained earnings is going to go into stabilization?
They actually collect money as part of the sewer assessments that they do, that are meant to be set aside in this capital reserve stabilization fund. So they have like a separate line item in their budget that identifies that revenue.
Okay.
And whatever it is they collect is what they transfer into the fund.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
All right, any additional questions on G? All right, H, demolition delay.
Yes, so this is submitted by the Historical Commission, and any changes are either underlined or stricken through, so you can see the changes. We've worked with the Select Board the last, over a couple meetings to come up with this most recent amended version.
All right, any questions on this? Probably not any budget impact, right? Direct.
I don't believe it does.
So everyone looking at their dictionary online? Any questions? Okay. All right, I, salary administration plan.
I is positions that have already been approved positions by the Personnel Committee and just are being incorporated into the comp and class grid.
So it's
There's one,
just creating those grades, but it's not appropriate, or there's no appropriation for need for funds because it's
Right.
already,
Yep.
okay. That just determines that there's no financial impact when we get to it.
Any questions?
Excuse me.
All right, now we get into the fun part. All right, so I think J is to hear a report. I don't think anyone would object to hearing a report, and unless we're getting billed by someone to give said report, there's no budgetary impact. So any questions on J?
I don't know, can the TCP committee put in vouchers?
You can put them in.
So just to set expectations so that we're all at least on the same sheet of music here, is it our expectation, given the information that still isn't available, that we are going to hear some semblance of a report on November 4th? Like a report that would be given to town meeting, or not?
As of Wednesday night's meeting, that is the intent, that November 4th, November 10th, and special town meeting, we will have the same information reviewed.
Okay.
That's the intent. What's actually going to happen, I've given up guessing.
Right, but you're talking just for J? Just the report of the design committee?
Right, but
Not any additional reports relative to the select board's action on L?
no, the action on L is the select board. They'll be presenting that. TCP will not be.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason for my question was typically we get a preview of the report. I'm fine with tonight recommending approval to hear a report, but I just would like to know when we're going to hear that preview, or if we're going to, but it sounds like we are.
To the best of my knowledge, it's going to be, the draft is going to be put together over this coming weekend. We're going to review it and tweak it next Wednesday, so it should be available shortly after that.
All right, so our plan will be to hear that report on November 4th, I think, as we discussed last week. So the question then becomes, is there any questions on J itself, just hearing a report? Okay.
Do we know how long the report will be?
They kicked around some time frames. It will not be long because it'll be clear and concise. And, you know, we've already reported on the renovation project, so that will be reviewed and pared down from what it was at annual town meeting. And then the comparative information will be added to that presentation. So that's basically what you'll get with L. And hopefully answer any questions most of the questions as we go into, is it K? Yeah.
Okay.
I get thoroughly confused as to where we are with letters. Numbers are much easier.
So just again, back to J, hearing the report. Any other questions, comments? All right, so we should probably take K and L somewhat together from a discussion standpoint. But leading into this, we don't have values associated with what the projected bogey cost is for a tear down and rebuild. So we're at a public hearing where we have two articles in front of us that we have maybe whispered estimates on things, but in the entirety of the articles, meaning what L's $250,000 relates to, we don't have the entire impact of what that 250 would lead to. The question for the board is, do we want to skip over these as part of the public hearing? Do we want to at least discuss them? Or do we want to, back to the November 4th, make November 4th the official public hearing related to K and L? So
the only comment I would make is that the way K is written, all of the information is available for that article right now. In everybody's mind, the comparative analysis is part of that article. It really isn't the way it's written. But I understand holding off on doing much with that until we get the comparative.
The fact of the matter is that the voters at town meeting approved $50,000 to get a comparative number against what is effectively that article. So while I agree with you technically, Mr. Passios, we still have that missing piece of information. And I don't think it would be fair to the voters at town meeting. I mean, we can talk about it all night if we want to, but I do think that we need to talk about it on November 4th or at some point after we do have that comparative piece of information.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I'm just saying, and I said this in the TCP meeting, and I'm not sure if it was a select board meeting, that this article here, in my eyes, should have gone to the town in May. Settle it once and for all. Are we going to renovate it or not? And then move forward from there. But here we are. This is the situation we're in, and I agree. We wait for the comparative analysis
So in the interest of efficiency, I, as you might all understand or know or have been hinted at this point, I have a lot of opinions on both of these articles. But I think it would be extremely repetitive to share all those opinions twice. So my preference is to hold that discussion in full on November 4th. However, we have advertised a public hearing for tonight for the entire proposed article. So if there are members of the public or something who do have anything to say, I think that everybody ought to be able to, have their piece with these.
Sure. Just the other issue is that putting these off to November 4th, making no recommendation tonight means that there will be no recommendation on the warrant, which is fine. I'm just stating that as a fact.
Is the unfortunate condition we are in.
Right.
Okay, so just with respect to K, do we have a value?
I was just gonna So K, as far as the debt exclusion amounts, 23,570,000.
No sense.
23,000,005.
1 cent.
1 cent.
Could I have that number again, please?
23,570.
70. Okay, and the other thing relative to this was there was a request for a debt analysis. Is it appropriate to bring that up now with this article? I would believe so.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Passios, because I discussed this today with both the town manager and Mr. Menard, because we did receive some documents from the town financial advisors.
Advisor.
As we call them.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to open them. I did see that.
And it takes a little while to look at them and fully consume them. One of the there were two issues though two things that I took issue with on there. One was, it appeared as if for the comparative analysis where we take out the borrowing at the end of the decade for Turkey Hill, that they had figured the escalator in costs for that project, which originally started around $35.5 million, $36 million. They had taken that on a basis of a 3% escalator, and which is fine with me because who knows what construction costs are going to be in 9 years. The problem that I had is that the lead proponent of this project, Selectman Jeffries, part of his narrative has been a 4% annual escalation in costs for all new buildings. So in my mind, if we're going to compare apples to apples, we ought to assume a 4% escalation in the cost of Turkey Hill.
That makes sense, yeah.
And again, it might seem minor, but it might have an effect on that space between 10 and 11% debt service as a ratio to levy. The other, question, and we could debate it till the cows come home, and I don't think any of us would be able to claim we're right, is, we're looking at conservative interest rates. And, who knows where we're going to be in terms of in terms of interest rates going forward. So I believe the town manager took my suggestion and asked the consultants to at least recalculate based on the escalator. The next question that I had is, okay, well, what's appropriate, if anything, to put in the warrant on this? Because we had talked last week about, do we want to put something in the warrant around what the net effect might be on average property value or something along those lines? As I looked at all of the attachments that came today, my first thought, which I shared with Heather over email, is I see nothing here that anybody would be able to, just take a look at and comprehend in the warrant. Yep. But I do think, though, that there may be a place where we say something to the effect of, if we borrow, specific to Article K and possible K and L, if we borrow this money, then this is the effect on the tax rate over the course of the next X number of years. And we have that information today, and there really isn't much to argue about it. So, we could do, and it would be a 2-paragraph kind of letter, just the facts, ma'am. But I do think that is relevant information for voters.
Yeah.
I agree because, I've said for quite a while now that I expect the numbers to be comparable. It's just what you get for those numbers is totally different. So if you put that analysis in there, it tells them that this is pretty much the net effect of either project.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I'd be happy to draft that if you guys want and just kind of circulate it over email, and by exception, I can submit that to the town manager, before next Tuesday, when I believe that's your deadline for.
It's when they vote on the warrant, and we have to get to printer after.
So I'd be happy to do that, but I would obviously circulate it a couple of days in advance if you guys want to look at that.
Peter, could you just summarize quickly what you would think you would say in that?
Yeah, something to the effect of, Articles K and L, or whatever they're going to be called, are leading to what will eventually be excluded debt. So in the case of K, it's specified, the principal is specified in the article. In the case of L, it'll be, let's just assume, for the sake of analysis, that it'll be the same number, or whatever the architects come back with. Give or take, this is going to have an effect on the tax rate of, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you have them in your email, per $1,000 or per average property value. I actually did ask the town manager today, and it's buried in my email now, about, average property value. So the average residential value in Lunenburg currently in the assessor's office is $351,358. So if you take those, dollars and cents on that spreadsheet and you multiply by 351, that's your annual tax increase as a result of that building project. And I can probably get that into a couple of paragraphs. And it is what it is what it is. It's just the facts, you know. And I don't think that we're in a position to make any editorial comment on this as a committee anytime before November 4th.
So based on this analysis and those assumptions that you just talked about, somewhere around 2036 would be the peak based on a 2031 start of the school and a 2023 of the TC Passios. And for the average home, in today's average home costs, would be about $540 tax increase per year. Again, that's a $350-ish thousand home.
Having not done the math, I take your word for it.
Excel just.
Peter, just momentarily, could you go back to the process we're going to use for what you're going to put together as to how much this committee's going to review it before it actually gets submitted for printing?
Yeah, so this, I think the obligation is really to get it to the town manager before the selectmen's meeting on Tuesday, right? Because they're voting on the warrant, and then technically the warrant's ready to go. If we want to put in a cover letter on that warrant, I would say I would need to get that thing drafted within 24 hours from now, circulate it via email to you guys, ask for any suggestions. You send me suggestions, I send you an updated copy on Monday, and we kind of go from there. And by the way, if we don't have consensus by end of day Tuesday, it doesn't go. Because I don't think we should be doing this by majority vote. I think this needs to be a consensus communication.
Yep, that's good. I just want to make sure I had it clear. Thank you.
And so just the debt service numbers, they're from, you said it's from the advisor, one of the advisors?
Our financial advisor.
Financial advisor, just based on current market rates, et cetera, right?
Yep, they use a certain percentage he did for, and Karen provided that.
So I have it. Karen sent me this information today. So this assumes 2.5% for the first bond on TCP and 3.5% for the second bond, because this will be done in two packages. The second one obviously being later. And then for Turkey Hill Elementary School, it assumes a 4.5% for all bonds. So they're clearly projecting a increase in interest rates, but.
Okay.
He's usually conservative in his estimates, too.
Peter, would you mind sharing that information?
Yes.
I'd be interested in those assumptions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Interesting note on interest rates.
Too.
It's another very good point that residents need to be aware of. Is that, in my adult lifetime, we've done quite a bit of building in Lunenburg, comparatively, to my childhood anyway. So we built the new primary school, the public safety building, and the library all on 20-year notes. And we built the middle high school on 30-year notes, I believe. And so this assumes that moving forward for these two projects, we would continue with 30-year borrowing.
I was just going to make a comment about interest rates. Nobody has the crystal ball as to what's really going to happen with interest rates. Excuse me. But in private conversations, I talk about my personal situation, and I was in a variable rate mortgage 3 or 4 years ago, and the chickens were running around the yard screaming, the sky's going to fall, the rates are going to climb, so I locked in. I would have been better off to stay with the variable rate mortgage, and that's 5 years. It's not 25 or 30 years, but the projections have gone just the opposite of, or the actuals have actually gone just the opposite of the projections.
Nobody knows what's going to happen to interest rates. If they did, they'd be richer than Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, but the government or the Fed's got itself in a position where if they even whimper about increasing interest rates, then the market crashes. So then they have to retract that and wallow in zero interest for another few years. And I don't know how they're going to get out of that cycle without a recession.
That's why we're in local government, not national.
Yeah.
All right, is there any additional comments from the public, either in person or?
One
sorry.
One further thing before, just so it's clear, the 250,000 in the L is going to be, we have a number coming in this week, so.
I'm sorry?
The 250,000 that's in Article L, that was just an estimate put in, we have that number coming from the architect this week.
So that's an estimate coming from our current architectural?
Yes, yep.
So if they were to do
They
the
will,
project-
so that may change, that number may change.
Okay.
Just want to make that clear.
Can we stay with our current architect, or do we have to put it back out to bid?
I don't think we'd have to put it out to bid because there's not a construction cost. If there were, we need, it's part of procurement law. If you're doing design and construction, it would require it to be bid, but engineering is exempt from that alone.
Even though we're now building the Lunenburg THAC?
First time it's come out.
Okay.
Hello, Rhonda Licio from 181 Reservoir Road. I just wanted to comment that I don't like the way that these articles are almost being presented like it's a choice between renovating 55,000 square feet or building a new building at 55,000 square feet. I actually zoomed into the TCP Design Committee meeting last night, and I told them I'm going to be voting no on both articles. In 2011, the school vacated the TCP building. And during the past 10 years, the town has unilaterally decided a variety of programs would be housed within the building. Now the town expects the taxpayers to either renovate space or build new space for its expanded uses. And we're talking about not much of a price difference whether we renovate or build new. So my position is we should be looking, the only real way to reduce the cost is to reduce the square footage. And why we're not seeking to do that is beyond me. Why there's been no discussion. I agree with what the chair and the vice chair have commented a few meetings ago, as well as the select board chair. And I just think that both of these articles should be voted down. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make one comment, and it's not really in rebuttal to the previous comments or previous speaker, but I do remind the public and everybody in this room that, excuse me, other than the school offices that are programmed into this project, whether it be a renovation or rebuild. The other uses are going to have space for those programs, and a school building project will not fund that space. The town will pay to build that space one way or another. We either do it in this building or it'll have to be done in a separate project.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
Rhonda Licio again. Just in reply to the previous comment, I would say that renovating or basically putting every use into one 55,000 square foot building results in rendering this building, the Ritter, and the Brooks House all completely obsolete with no use. So then we've got an excess of 22,500 square feet left of buildings. In this project, why couldn't we pull some of the things out that might make sense to pull out and put in a different location? If we're looking at the same dollar amount practically for renovation versus new construction, I think we need to assess all the spaces and take a look at how we can get the biggest bang for our buck. Like, for example, this space. Years ago when I was on PAC, I inquired about using this space for our studio. It was right before the town manager's offices got renovated and put up here. Now, this is an ideal spot for PAC, and they have capital funds. They are a self-funded program. They have capital funds to invest in renovating their own space. Why am I being asked, sorry, my mask keeps falling. Why am I being asked to pay top dollar to renovate or build new space when there's actually a program that would fit into this upstairs area? It just doesn't make sense to me. Or like the food bank. I agree that is a valuable program. Why couldn't, instead of building new space or renovating new space, wouldn't a couple of the offices downstairs be suitable? I mean, we're just not thinking. We need to think of our space as a whole. And I do agree with consolidation of town offices. But I don't agree that we need a 55,000 square foot building to do that. And I just really would encourage people to, and as far as the extended day program, that's another program that we're not mandated to have, is supposed to be self-funded. And I honestly have a difficult time believing that the people we trust to educate our children are incapable of figuring out the logistics of a program which currently has 50 students in the morning and 80 students in the afternoon. And I don't see how they cannot figure out how to accommodate that program within space that taxpayers are already paying for. It's just outrageous. My taxes have gone up almost 40% in the last 5 years. I've had it. We need to control our spending somehow. We never have enough money to do all the things we want, so we need to prioritize them. I mean, what, we're going to vacate these buildings and then rent them out and then have to be landlords? Is that the plan? That's not a good plan. And I'll tell you why. Because of the fact I see the stormwater issue as a landlord-tenant issue, okay? We have a $750,000 project, stormwater project, that we cannot fund right now. That's not being funded. I shouldn't say we can't. That water is going onto homeowners' property and damaging people's property. Now, how can we as a community, think it's okay to send our stormwater onto a resident's property and cause damage and not spend the money to fix it. I just don't get it. I just think we need to have better priorities. And I see, I consider taxes my property tax to be a form of rent. It's really, I'm renting my property from the town. And how can you raise, and I actually have a stormwater problem on my property that's where stormwater comes in from the town.
Mr. Vice Chair, we're getting way away from the nature of this hearing.
I'll let you continue.
No, I think you got the gist of what I'm saying. We need to prioritize, control our impulses. I just want some control over spending and some discussion at least. I just think we're heading in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will just follow up that I tend to agree with the sentiment of everything said there, that, you know, going forward with a $55,000 remodel project, which I think everyone is starting to realize, you know, you could build the same thing for the same amount of money. Why would you do that? I do think you want to pump the brakes and not go into a $55,000 design and engineering project.
Square foot?
55,000 square
It's
foot.
55 grand, I'm in.
55, 55, yeah, sorry. And just, you know, I do think the time between now and annual town meeting should be spent on developing requirements, understanding what our needs are, and then getting into an architecture and design process for whatever comes out of that kind of study. And honestly, the 6 months between special town meeting and annual town meeting, you got holiday season in the middle there, it's really probably 4 months. And if you look, I think most people know I'm a defense contractor. So I have a lot of experience in acquisition. And one of the things that is always cited as a problem in cost growth is that there's a lack of good requirements going into the process. So my opinion is that perhaps $250,000 is the right amount, maybe is the appropriate bill to have at annual town meeting. But in the meantime, what we should be doing is setting up a commission, an ad hoc commission for the Lunenburg THAC committee, and focusing our efforts on developing what those requirements are. And as the previous speaker mentioned, what is the use of this building? What is the use of the other buildings that, you know, Ritter building that would be vacated at that point? And also have a serious discussion about these, you know, these quote-unquote self-funded programs. You know, does that self-funding also include, you know, what would equate to millions of dollars of capital and building expenses associated with them? So, but lacking the report and to the sentiment of the discussion that we started with, I do think, you know, a larger discussion is probably to be had on the November 4th.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to rebut that.
Go ahead.
Some of the aspects of it. I don't totally disagree with some of the comments you just made, but our needs have been assessed, I'm going to say a minimum of 3 times over the past 8 years. We've done a needs assessment. We've adjusted that needs assessment. The TC Passios Committee has spent almost 2 years talking with the public, talking with the entities that are looking for programming space, whatever you want to call it. And here we are looking to put that program into a building. We're at a point where we need to decide on these 2 projects. If those are both defeated, then knock yourself out trying to figure out how you're going to split this up into smaller projects and spend probably 30% more. And maybe you'll be happier with the 30% more in 3 buildings or whatever it turns out to be. But we're at a point because we've spent easily 8 years doing what you just suggested be done all over again. So we need to move these proposals forward, yay or nay. If it's nay, then, like I said, knock yourself out. I've done everything I can to bring what we believe is appropriate to the town. Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other comments from the Zoom public or phone public? All right. Should we take a motion and a vote to extend this public hearing to November 4th relative to these articles?
No, what we, and I would invite the town manager to comment, but my thinking was that we move, first of all, we still have articles that we need to move through here, but we go through this roster in the public hearing that we're in. We close the public hearing. We vote as we prefer, as we go down the roster, vote to recommend approval, vote to recommend disapproval, find no financial impact, or defer. And then we reopen a new public hearing on the 4th of November to specifically hear whatever articles that we designate.
I'm good with that. Is everyone? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, it might not just be K and L, because I suspect that we probably ought to take a rethink on C as well. So there'll be opportunities here to hear to hear articles.
Peter, as part of your thought process, just to verify, your defer that you're talking about on certain articles will be to town meeting, so that it says that in the warrant, or it will be to defer to a public hearing on November 4th for those specifically being vetted on November 4th?
So
I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest with you, I haven't totally thought that through. So let's just, can we do that now? Or do you?
What?
I think we probably should. So my thinking is that if we're deferring an action, we're deferring that action tonight. So we could, and my thinking here, Dave, is I don't want to spend unnecessary time on the town meeting floor debating amongst the finance committee.
Sure.
We can bring our opinions individually and have it out then, that's fine. Yep. But I want to avert time spent in finance committee deliberation at town meeting. Yep. So I think we can defer tonight. We can reopen a new public hearing, re-vote potentially on those same articles on November 4th, and then we just report a change when the moderator calls for the finance committee recommendation on the 16th of November.
Right. But in the printed warrant, it'll just show as deferred because...
Which is fine.
Decisions... Yeah, no, I'm not questioning that. I'm just want to be sure it gets posted properly.
By the way, we can, so long as we're following open meeting law, we can have a public hearing every day from now at the town meeting if we want to,
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I'm sure Heather would love that.
We can't do it on November 11th.
No, we can't. She won't be here.
Building's closed.
I got a key. Okay, so the next article is M, Flat Hill Road culvert acquisition, give, purchase, eminent domain or otherwise.
Yep. So there are easements needed as part of the Flat Hill Road culvert project. So that this addresses that. And it's authorizing the select board. That's what any article like that, that's the distinction that needs to be made.
So the only ones that would have financial impact probably, or significant, is if we went the eminent domain route.
No, yeah, this would be by gift,
essentially. Which we hope not to.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So
Well, Peter's collecting his thoughts. This would be a loaded question, but why are we having this come before us when the project's already been totally designed and engineered, and now all of a sudden we have this as an added step? Shouldn't that have been in the original scope of the project?
It was brought to my attention after the town meeting vote. It was part of the design process, but that these easements were needed.
That the ball was dropped during the design process. I'm not, like I said, it's a loaded question because it's, I understand when the information became available to the town and to you. It's just that, we have projects like that that are supposedly fully vetted, and we've got a number attached to them. And yeah, there are extenuating circumstances that change that number. But this type of stuff, I mean, this is common sense when you're doing a project like this, that when the engineering and design is being done, the abutting properties have got to be analyzed, and it should have been known that we were going to need these easements. But thank you.
Welcome.
It's an editorial more than anything.
So my procedural question on this, and it perhaps would be better after the public hearing, but this article still says purchase eminent domain or otherwise. So. Yeah. I would say, knowing where the article is going, it has no financial impact. But could.
Right.
And so, ergo, is there the intention to modify this before it goes to the warrant? Or do we all just kind of wait?
Nope,
or
this has already received town council review. He was the one that drafted it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it sounds like we need to vote on it because there is a potential financial impact.
Or we defer, and then vote at town meeting.
Well, I don't think we're going to get any new information. But
what the vote will be, though, is to authorize, it will include all of those terms within it, because it's authorizing the select board to proceed with it. Same as a conveyance, when you vote on a conveyance of a property. It's not you're voting to whether acquire a gift or, we're not choosing one of those at town meeting. It's authorizing the select board.
In the event that the select board would choose to purchase by eminent domain, that would require an appropriation later on, right?
If there's any type of appropriation needed, yeah, it would.
And this article does not have an appropriation, so it would be contingent upon another article. Okay.
Is there any sense from any of these parcels whether or not anyone's willing to not gift?
Not to my knowledge.
Is there?
Yeah, they have been reached out to all the owners.
Sort of expressed their desire to gift it.
As far as I know, there may be one property owner that does not live in town. So there may be, and that's something I'd have to check with the DPW director.
Okay.
I hope they'd want their culvert more than they do.
Yes, yeah, there's definitely an
maybe they just want the bridge to go into disrepair like other ones. And
okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. N, transfer of custody and control.
So this is an article we previously voted on, but the parcel number was wrong. So it's map 4, parcel 2, previously voted as map 4, parcel 1.
Okay. Any comments, questions? All right, P?
P was submitted by the Park Commission to amend the sewer service area map to include Marshall Park. So the sewer line goes by there, but it has to be voted on to be part of the district. So when it provides, they're looking at 2 different options, both town sewer and private sewer.
The Sewer Commission has met with this as was actually an appointment on their agenda that evening, and they have voted unanimously to support this, but made it very clear to the public that this does not necessarily mean that sewer will be hooked up to Marshall Park or will be approved to be hooked up to Marshall Park. That's a whole nother process that has to go through the Sewer Commission.
Where is the sewer line? Is it on Chestnut Street or Main Street?
No, it's on Route 2A.
Route 2A? Okay.
Yep.
So would anyone else any other properties be included in that that on
It
our-
already goes by
I
there.
believe the district goes right around Marshall Park.
Correct. Yeah, Marshall Park is carved out of the map. It's just a hole in the middle of it.
Has the Parks Committee done their samples yet? They're sampling it?
The soil testing was completed on Wednesday, and the engineers will be coming to the Parks meeting on the 27th or 8th, whatever that day is, that we're meeting at the end of the month, to give us a draft presentation on design of a system.
Did they give any indication whether or not they found anything besides ledge?
They got 1, 2, 3, 4 good holes.
Okay.
Yep. We've got a whole stretch that's basically from the old bathroom all the way back on the plateau. We've got that entire area where we can put septic system.
Okay.
All right, what did we just do? P. All right, Q.
So I get to round out the evening, as usual.
We're just getting started.
Well, I get to round out my time here. So Q through the end is planning board articles to sort of clean up the bylaws. Q is the types of districts. Retail commercial district doesn't exist any longer as of the 2017 creation of the use table. It was a small area of land on the corner of Townsend Harbor Road and Mass Ave that was just converted to commercial because it didn't have any frontage. It was like backland that had its own district. It was kind of odd. And the village district has existed since 2015 and isn't listed here, so we're just proposing to swap the words. No real financial impact there.
Any questions?
R is the modification to the water supply protection district. I got my papers all messed up. There we go. So earlier this year, the water district modified their withdrawal permit with DEP. As part of doing that, they created a new aquifer map in relation to their wells on Lancaster Ave. It created a small area that juts out to the west from the current aquifer district or the aquifer protection district. It's not very large, but it is a change to the map. They requested that we follow suit and change our bylaw to match their map. So we would be taking their map and codifying it through changing the map reference in our bylaw. Relatively simple. It's a zone 3 change, which is the lowest level of aquifer protection, and we do have a watershed protection, water supply protection, all synonymous terms essentially. So it just impacts the ability of certain uses to go in that area. It's a residential area. It doesn't really affect residential property.
Okay. Any questions on R? All right, S.
S is an update to the zoning map to reflect the adoption of the new water supply protection map. So because our zoning map reflects our overlay districts, which the water supply protection district is one of, in order to have an accurate zoning map, we would need to adopt a map change. So if one passes, the other is a necessity of sorts.
Okay.
And well, any questions on that one? And then the final
Adam, if I could,
I'm sorry?
just a second. One of these articles have a bunch of information attached to it. I read it somewhere. It's not in the actual articles, but it had a listing of lot sizes, lot frontages, so on and so forth.
That is
There's a whole
that's
chart.
T. That's the one we're getting to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So T. You are correct, Mr. Passios. This is an amendment to 5.1, 255.1, which is the lot area and dimensional requirements for minimum size of lots. In the past 6 or so months, the planning board has had occasion to speak with several property owners within the limited business residential district. And some of these were approval not required divisions. Some of them were proposals to do other things, and there is no current lot size requirement or frontage requirement within the limited business residential district. So.
At all?
At all. Nothing at all. No, not even a reference to it.
Okay.
So this is intended to, again, strike the retail commercial district, which is still hanging out on the table, and replace it with the limited business residential district. So, again, our minimum lot size here in town is 40,000 square feet, a builder's acre. So we're keeping that within the limited business residential. It tends to be a series of smaller lots. It's the area from the edge of the village district down to right around Beale Street on one side, and around the Dippin' Donuts on the other side, on the Water District side of the street. So, and it's all along Mass Ave. It's intended as sort of a live-work hybrid district that is probably a little less restrictive rather than the village district, but more restrictive than a commercial district. Looking at it, reading through it, I always inferred that it was an area that had sort of grown up from residents, and through the initiation of zoning back in the 50s and 60s, people were just operating businesses, and they kind of sort of said, well, we're going to just write something that fits what's here already. It's been something that exists for a long time. The board's just really looking to codify it, so they're keeping the same lot frontage of 100 feet, which is pretty universal in our town, and they're actually reducing the lot width, which you find in most of the residential districts, to 100 to match the frontage. So through the front of the building, you need to have a lot that's 100 feet wide. And again, really all we're doing is swapping retail commercial for limited business residential. And this would be the table you were speaking about.
Okay. I believe it pertains to this district. There was discussion a number of years ago, and I don't remember who brought it up and whether it was in a planning board meeting or where it was, but the comment that, in fact, it had to have been this district because it was along Route 2A, and that was a comment about the shallow depth of the district.
Yes.
Being a problem to really construct a lot of commercial or businesses because of the requirement for parking and so on and so forth. You need a hugely wide ownership with that shallow a depth. Is that a synopsis of what you remember?
You know, I don't recall that conversation. Okay. The same could frankly be said for the commercial district from sort of Walmart to the Fitchburg line. Mm-hmm. It's a relatively shallow district. This area isn't really intended for larger businesses that have a significant amount of parking needs. I mean, most of the lots are smaller. The depth is, I guess potentially an issue. It's several hundred feet deep, maybe 250 in certain areas. Really, I think the issue for that is more there's a historic development pattern there that exists, and most of the lots are built on in some way. So you're compiling lots at the point you want to build something of a size that you're going to need a significant parking lot. And I think that with the planning board's push currently to update the master plan, There's an entire chapter on land use and zoning with there, an element is what they call them. I still call them chapters. I guess I feel like I'm getting old. But there's a whole section in the master plan where they talk about that. And they review the zoning we have, they review where the town wants to go, and suggestions would be made of areas where modifications could be made, and expanding the depth of the district, changing the classification of the district. Those sorts of things would come out in that process.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Any additional comments, discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, so now we move into our recommendations, right?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I move that we vote to recommend approval for Article A.
Second.
Any discussions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of Article B.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
We're on a roll here.
Let's go.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we vote to defer our recommendation on Article C.
Second.
Any discussion?
Defer to what?
Town meeting.
Special town meeting.
We'll defer to special town meeting.
Special town meeting.
But not to say that we won't change our mind between now and then.
Will we have any more information before?
Yes, we
We're
have.
meeting on the 28th, but we're not going to be talking about that, right?
No, we won't take that up on the 28th. We'll likely take it up on the 4th at the
Public hearing.
public hearing.
Okay.
And so, since Dave asked the question, I've been thinking more about it. We will advertise a public hearing, but then we will put in the agenda for that meeting the specific articles that we will be discussing, and this will be on that list.
So do you think we need to take a vote on which ones are in there, or?
I think that that should be the chair's discretion, but we'll all agree to it in advance anyway.
Yeah. I mean, anything we defer when the warrant goes to be printed, we can make a recommendation ahead of time, as you said, to save time on town meeting floor.
All right, so we have a motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, I move that we defer a recommendation on Article D. And my thinking on this was that we lacked clarity from the town manager around some of the Mass General law and limiters or flexibility with respect to assets and income. And I think I would personally like more clarification on that article.
Second.
All right, any additional comments? So I agree with that, and I guess my big one would be if we could just even update the language to peg it to something else that may be something worthy of discussion throughout this process, so we don't have to continuously revisit this and yet keep up with inflation or other measures for our elderly population.
The only question I'd have with that is that at what point does that take us away from the original intent of the article, and would it need to be done at annual town meeting with a different article to adjust that way? I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
I mean, from a process standpoint, all we have is the article in front of us right now.
Right.
So.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right,
Mr.
passes
Chairman,
unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we vote to recommend approval on Article E.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we vote to recommend approval for Article F.
Second.
Mr. Baelish seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to recommend approval for Article G.
Second.
Switching off here? Okay, we're on a roll. Come on.
Just to make the minutes taking harder. All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we find no financial impact on Article H.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend approval for Article I.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval on Article J.
Second.
Any discussion? There's no financial impact.
Well, it's a very financially laden
It's true.
report.
Okay, yep. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to defer a recommendation until town meeting on Articles K and L.
Could we specifically state that in the minutes that it's special town meeting just for grammatical?
Yeah,
Yep.
sure. So
What'd you say?
Second?
we're deferring to special town meeting, seconded by Dave.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, I move that we find no financial impact for any remaining articles. M, N, P, Q, R, S, and T.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Eminent domain one on them still gets me, but, okay,
We can change our mind.
true. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Look how easy that was.
It's like a well-oiled machine.
Smokes. Unprecedented.
Yep.
I need to come late to all public hearings.
That's pretty well.
Let me find my agenda.
We were going to discuss the warrant letter, which we actually already discussed.
All right, the warrant letter.
Yeah.
Okay, so we already discussed the warrant letter. Any additional discussion on the discussion of the warrant letter?
So the warrant letter, the only theme, The only theme that's going to be covered then is J, K, and L.
Yeah, in fact, my intent is to just hit on tax impact on K and L.
Yeah, okay. I just hadn't really run it through my head if there's any other articles that we really need to comment on, like we do at annual town meeting. There's a lot more involved in that, in those articles.
Traditionally, there's a sort of fiscal condition of the town letter that we write for annual town meeting that, I don't think we want to go through the effort of writing in the next 3 days.
Yep.
Nor is it something we normally do.
Right, so the variables in that would be the cost of both buildings, which we could just make one estimate on. And then you could even run an analysis at 3%, 4%, 5%, right?
Yeah, but I'm going to stick to whatever the consultants come back with tomorrow or whenever we get a... Do you think we'll get that recalculation tomorrow, Heather? So I'll write it as we have it right now and circulate it, and then when we get new numbers from consultants on Monday, I'll plug in the new numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, and then...
I really think it makes sense to use the 4% escalator unless they have a compelling reason not to, because then it gives you, we've already got those as multipliers in a study that we paid for.
Right.
So it makes sense to stick with that.
Okay. And just a reminder, you're going to send that out for people to comment on?
Yes.
If you comment back, just a reminder, just comment
Back
only.
to me only.
Yeah, to Peter. Or else we gotta...
Don't reply all.
Yeah.
Ever.
So, otherwise we'll get a lesson on open meeting law violations.
How about if we share it to the whole town, then, there's no violation.
Okay, so minutes. I think there's one set of minutes in the OneDrive from last meeting?
Yeah, that would have been...
The 7th?
The 7th.
10/7. I read them. I don't know if anyone else.
I have.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the 7th.
So moved. Actually, it can only be voted on by the members who are here. So do you want to defer until our next meeting since you haven't read them?
Oh, I read them.
Oh, you did? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you didn't.
Oh.
So it's me, you, Dave, and Jay. Jay, are you okay to vote on this?
I don't think I read them.
We can defer. It's not that big a deal.
You can still pass 3-1.
What's that?
You can still pass 3-1.
Or 303. But
Yeah.
I think you can technically vote on them but
Technically, anybody who watched the meeting can vote.
yeah.
Yeah, if you watch the meeting, technically you can vote.
All right.
All right. So there is a motion. Was there a second?
Second?
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Any
I didn't read them.
abstentions? Okay. So it was, who abstained?
I did.
601.
601. All right. Committee reports, or the Dave hour.
I was just jotting down notes so I'd remember who, what, where, when, how.
And I just because I love.
Yeah. A number of the committees that I sit on have not met recently. Green Communities has not since the last report I gave, which was, I think, a month ago. That process, I think there's a need to, maybe for us sometime in the near future, to get an update either from the town manager or from the Green Communities as to where we're at, where we're going, and where we're not going, or where we're stagnant, just so that everybody in town understands what's going on with that project, because they have, approved money for the purchase of the streetlights, and if it doesn't move forward on a timely basis, then I think it's prudent for the town to get an update on what's going on with that money or that project. So that's my comments on that. I'm sure we'll be meeting soon because we've got the next grant round. We need to, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, we have to submit by early February? Or we have to have everything else cleaned up by February for April? Right, but the application deadline for the spring round is April? Okay, so, I mean, that's going to sneak up on us pretty fast. And to my knowledge, the only project that's in the pipeline right at the moment is the streetlights. And, you know, we're encouraging every chance we get for facilities and any other town departments to come up with projects that are appropriate for this next grant round. We are skipping one grant round, so it's important that we jump back into this game when we can in the spring. That's it. Okay, so we're not getting into the first half grant round. We're bypassing that and going to the second. Thank you. Parks Commission will be meeting the last week of October. Our agenda's starting to get a bit busy for that meeting, I believe. I don't know everybody that's going to be there at this point. I believe we may be discussing the skate park at that meeting, but I have not seen a draft agenda yet. And the septic design engineer has asked for time at that meeting to give us a preliminary plan now that the soil testing has been completed and we found appropriate areas to be able to put in a repaired system with no problem. And that'll all be vetted by the commission going forward. Capital Planning Committee is meeting next Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. at the Ritter. So far, I don't see a Zoom on that meeting, so that will be a full in-person with no Zoom, I believe. So if you want to see the review, the initial review of projects submitted by the departments of town, you'll have to come to the meeting. Anybody else I'm skipping over that we really need to hear about right now?
I don't think so.
TC Passios, obviously, we've been having, I was trying to, I was hoping I'd get by it, but I know I can't. TC Passios has set up a meeting schedule that is every single Wednesday in October, and we presently have 3 meetings scheduled in the first 2 weeks of November. So we are seriously hoping that the numbers that the engineers and architects said would be ready by November 1st, we are urging them to have them November 4th, that we have those before the 1st of November. That's the best we've got right at the moment. Very frustrating. As everybody heard from my mouth over the past month or two, that we would have the numbers for this hearing, and it just did not happen. We won't debate the reasons, but we'll leave it at that. We don't have the numbers. November 4th, as we've talked about this evening at this meeting, we will be holding a Finance Committee public hearing to vet those articles. And if we don't have the numbers by then, I'm guessing that it'll be a passover on all 3 articles at town meeting, or excuse me, the 2 funding articles. The report will go forward at special town meeting. November 10th, we have scheduled a public forum to go over all of that information, all of the presentations that will ultimately be presented at special town meeting. Be an opportunity for the public to come and ask questions, hopefully shorten the debate on special town meeting floor. And that'll be the fullest vetting of the information available up to that date. The presentation is being put together over the next few days, will be reviewed by the committee next Wednesday, so we should have a final presentation agreed to by the committee by the following Wednesday. Also, we asked the Ledger during the meeting to give us the deadline dates for an article to be put into the Ledger. The intent right now is that the committee will formulate an article and will be submitted to the Ledger the Monday, let me think about this, 2 Mondays before special town meeting. The dates are just running together. But anyway, it will come out in the issue that comes out on Friday of that week, so it'll be the Friday before special town meeting. So the information will get out in print to the public, and the notice of the public forum will also be in the Ledger a week ahead of the public forum. I think I covered everything. If anybody remembers anything else I should mention to the public at home, please remind me.
All right. Any other committee reports from anyone? I have one that's not necessarily my committee, but the trustees of the library trustees, they did approve their strategic plan. I think I mentioned this last week. In last week's meeting material, that strategic plan is in there, so it's probably something good for all of us to read because it starts to outline the next 5 years worth of goals, which includes becoming a community hub as well. And I believe Muir told me a couple days back that they're working on getting it up on the website. It wasn't updated yet as of the 12th, but it should be up there soon for everyone to. I thought it was well written, and it, again, quick read.
One alibi here. At our last meeting, I mentioned that I would forward registrations for both the MMA meeting and the Massachusetts Association of Finance Committee meetings. I forwarded one and not the other. So if you haven't received the thing on the Mass Municipal Association thing, I will forward it tomorrow. And if you're interested in either one of those, please report back to me either via email, and I'll consolidate that and share that with Heather and Karen so we can make sure that we're straight from a budget perspective. Worst case, come back on November 4th and let me know if you're going to do either one of those. Just so everybody knows, though, the Mass Association of Finance Committees, they're doing this on 3 consecutive Thursdays, starting, I believe, next Thursday. And so if we want to do, you're not going to be able to do one of them live if you're going to come to our November 4th meeting. But they will be recorded for registrants, and you can watch them later.
Just for those that have never signed up for MMA's annual meeting, your registration fees are paid, and then you are reimbursed for mileage, food costs, and lodging if it's required.
All right. Any public comment? Who do we usually do first, the public or the board?
We usually do it for the end. We do public first, and then the board. Give the board the last word in case the last us.
Any public comment from the public? And I can't see if there's any hands for it.
Doesn't appear to me.
All right. Any public comment from the board?
I'd like to congratulate the board for an excellent public hearing. I think it went very well, well orchestrated, and we got the job done without staying here till 11 o'clock at night.
I do have one interesting comment, closing comment. So I apologize for arriving late tonight. I had a professional obligation. I actually got to interview Billy Bean tonight on over Zoom, which was looked like a great highlight. But on my way here, my phone rang and was my mother calling me from her house on Cape Cod, wondering where the heck I was because I wasn't at the finance committee meeting. So, lest anyone think that nobody's watching these meetings, my mom is watching.
All right. Who can top that? All right. Items for future meetings. I think we have a pretty busy slate for the next 3, but if there's anything that anyone wants to...
Is there a specific time, the comment I brought up about green communities, that this committee might be interested in, requesting that we get that information by? Like I said, things are moving very slowly, and it's going to be a while before this whole project moves sufficiently forward, but there's RFQs that are...
I think it's a good question, and we're going to be moving into budget season real quick here come January. It might be worth putting it on a, first Thursday of December agenda and getting a conversation going about it, just so that everybody kind of knows where we're at.
Okay. I'll bring that up next Green Communities meeting, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
All right. Any other items for future meetings? All right. Our next meeting's October 28th, joint meeting with the school committee and I think the select board and our representatives to discuss Chapter 70 here. Everyone's welcome to join. We can have, I think, 75 people in this room, so I'm sure we'll get bursting at the seams. Do you have something you want to say on that? Then November 4th, which will be another public hearing. And then November 16th is special town meeting. I thought I wanted to ask a question on that, but maybe it's eluded me.
7 p.m. at the middle school, high school.
I redact mine.
I'll do a one-line update on the streetlights. Our town council has been working with Unitil's council, finally got a purchase and sale agreement not that long ago without a purchase price. That was followed up on. The price that they came back with was not too different from what we had previously received, so not a lot of depreciation. So we're through town council negotiating that. The other thing I want to bring up is the Unitil announcement about the rate increase for winter price rate increases. They resubmitted a rate proposal increase this week to DPU, and that is, I think, 15.4 cents, and they split the increase, so they deferred the additional 4.5 cents to the summer rate. At this time, this is all proposed, this is all pending before the DPU, but comments are due Monday, the 18th. So if anyone wants to submit comments on that, anyone that's signed up, not signed up through the municipal aggregation program, they can opt in at any time. Our rate through that is 11 cents. So we're locked into that for 3 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
When's the next dates associated with Arrow Estates, the O'Brien? Is there any?
No,
I thought there was a timeline that they had.
They had 90 days. They typically take 90 days to review after submittal, and we have no update yet.
Okay.
One more thing that may be a possible future topic, or should be, is a consent calendar. So the select board will be discussing that again as far as doing consent calendar. So once that is reviewed for possible articles, the finance would like them to weigh in too.
So we will should we put that as a separate item on the November 4th agenda?
Yes, I
Review the
would
consent
say.
calendar, just
Yes.
take action compared to the comment.
We want consensus going.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Wherever we can find it.
yes. Yeah. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
So just, I guess my question on the November 4th, we don't have a kind of real meeting doing business between now and then. Do we need to take any votes on which ones we're going to include in the,
So my intent is just to revisit anything that we deferred tonight,
That makes sense.
and I'll stipulate that on the agenda.
all right. Given that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those... Any
We're not
opposed?
going to wait.
All right. See you on the 28th at the middle high school auditorium.
No, are we doing the 28th there or here?
No, the 28th is here.
Oh,
Special town meeting is there.
oh, okay, sorry. I was going to show up there.
All right. Be here or be square.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Chris.
Recording stop.